Ever feel like you're stuck in some kind of endless high school, just chasing likes instead of good grades? Constantly worried about what people think, who's got the power, all that jazz.
Yeah, it's like high school never really ends online, does it?
Exactly. And today, we're diving deep into that whole vibe, exploring the work of a guy who, let me tell you, called this whole thing out way before it was cool, even trendy to do so. Rocco Rodriguez.
Oh, yeah, Rocco. Talk about a guy who wasn't afraid to ruffle some feathers.
No kidding. We're talking about his podcast, the one and only Drinking from the Social Media Firehose, and this killer article, The Techno-King Wears No Clothes.
50 title.
Right. So get this. Rocco, he comes right out and says social media, it's high school 2.0. Didn't sugarcoat it. He saw those same power trips, the clicks, the never-ending popularity contest.
And he called it all out, no holds barred, often with, shall we say, some colorful metaphors.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like Sarmageddon. Combining social media and, well, talk about a way with words. But here's the thing, and this is what really gets me. So much of what Rocco was saying, even a few years back, now it's like, whoa, how did he know?
Yeah, it's kind of eerie how accurate some of his predictions turned out to be.
Right. He wasn't just ranting, though some people might have thought so at the time. He had this way of connecting those personal, raw experiences of his to these big, sweeping trends we see online.
Like how he talked about time blindness and how it connected to his need to document, like, everything.
Yeah. I remember that. It was like he needed to leave this digital trail just to make sense of his own life, which, when you think about it, is kind of deep.
It is, and it plays right into his whole critique of social media, right? Like, here he is recognizing that impulse in himself, that need to share, to be seen, to feel validated.
And he's saying, hey, this is by design, people. This is how they get you.
Exactly. And he saw it happening on this bigger scale, too. The rise of the personal brand. Now we're all supposed to be influencers, selling our lives, our experiences. It's kind of wild when you think about it.
Okay, so we've got this underlying anxiety, this pressure to perform online.
Mm-hmm.
But where do the algorithms fit into this whole thing? Because we can't forget about them. They're pulling the strings.
Right, the algorithms. Rocco was way ahead of the curve on those. He talked about how it felt like he was constantly being watched, analyzed, judged even by these invisible forces.
It's that creepy feeling you get when you realize Facebook knows what you had for breakfast before you even tell your best friend.
Exactly. He saw how these platforms were built to use our vulnerabilities to keep us hooked. The more we scroll, the more we like, the more valuable we become.
And that brings us to, you guessed it, the main event. Rocco versus Elon Musk. And this is before the whole Twitter takeover. Right, back when Musk was all about spaceships and colonizing Mars.
Before the whole Chief Twit era, yeah. It really is something else how Rocco saw those Twitter shenanigans coming a mile away.
Seriously. There's this one episode of his podcast where he's like, this whole free speech absolutism, song and dance, it's a total setup, man. Just wait, it'll be used to silence anyone who dares to disagree with the guy. And then boom.
It's almost like he had a crystal ball or something. Like, Rocco was already calling out the hypocrisy, the silencing of dissenting voices, way before it even happened.
And look, it's not like Rocco was some random dude with an axe to grind. The guy clearly understood how this whole tech world operates, the power dynamics at play. Remember that line from the article? The one where he compares Musk to those old-timey robber barons?
Oh, yeah. Sharp as a tack, Rocco was. He saw right through that whole genius billionaire facade.
Totally. And don't even get me started on the whole digital town square argument, as if anyone actually owns the town square, right? Like, There's no one controlling what flies, who gets heard, who gets muted. Please, Rocco got that. He got it completely.
It's almost like he was saying, don't fall for the hype, people. Follow the money. Who's really pulling the strings here?
Exactly. And this is where Rocco's insights into Musk's leadership, his style, become super relevant, I think. Remember all that talk about Musk overpromising and underdelivering? Well, we saw that play out in real time with Twitter, didn't we?
Oh, absolutely. It was almost painful to watch, but like a car crash. You just couldn't look away. All those big promises about fancy new features, about finally defeating those pesky bots, about making Twitter profitable again. What happened?
It's like everything just kind of
imploded.
Yeah, like total chaos. Advertisers jumping ship left and right.
Right.
Features that were half-baked at best. Constant policy changes. It was wild.
It was almost like Musk's style, which might have worked in those controlled environments like, SpaceX or whatever, completely backfired in the unpredictable world of social media.
And here's the kicker. Rocco called that too. He was saying how Musk's need to be in control, his whole my way or the highway thing, would be his downfall. that it would ultimately destroy the very platform he was trying to save.
It's kind of tragic when you think about it. He saw how Musk's actions would drive away users, erode trust, and basically create a breeding ground for, well, all the bad stuff. And wouldn't you know it, that's exactly what happened.
It's like a checklist of doom-scrolling predictions. Rocco says Musk's takeover will be a disaster. Check. Predicts that whole free speech thing is a sham. Check. Says Twitter will descend into chaos. Check, check, check.
And through it all, Rocco kept sounding the alarm about the real people caught in the crossfire. The creators, the artists, the communities that relied on Twitter to connect, to have a voice. Rocco saw how vulnerable they really were.
He did.
Mm-hmm.
And he had this phrase for it. Haunting, really. He called them digital sharecroppers. Seriously. Digital sharecroppers. It's such a powerful image, right?
Mm.
What did he mean by that? It sounds kind of ominous.
Well, Rocco saw this inherent imbalance of power. You know, he recognized that, yeah, these platforms, they give creators a voice, a chance to find an audience, build something, but it's always on someone else's terms. Like, they're working the land, putting in the sweat equity.
But they never really own it.
Exactly. They're at the mercy of the platform, the algorithms, the guy in charge.
And that guy, in this case, being Elon Musk, who, as we've established, doesn't exactly have the best track record when it comes to, shall we say, consistency.
It's like Rocco was saying, look, you can build your whole livelihood on this thing, pour your heart and soul into it, but don't be surprised if the rules change overnight.
And that's the scary part, right? It's not just about Twitter. This whole thing, it speaks to this larger anxiety we have about, like, our dependence on these tech giants. The more we invest in them, the more vulnerable we become.
100%. And that's where I think Rocco's message really resonates today. He understood that this isn't just about technology, it's about power. Control. Who has it, who doesn't, and what happens when that power goes unchecked, which, let's face it, happens more often than not.
And it's kind of ironic, isn't it? Because Rocco, he built this whole following by speaking truth to power, calling out the BS, but then he gets silenced, labeled a technophobe, dismissed.
Which, when you think about it, just proves his point. It's like he became this digital martyr, a symbol of the very censorship he was warning us about.
Okay, so that's a lot to unpack. Where do we even go from here? Like, what are we supposed to do with all this? What did we learn from Rocco, from his warnings about social media, about Musk, about the whole digital shebang?
You know, for me, it boils down to critical thinking. We can't just passively scroll and consume in this day and age. We have to question the narratives, the algorithms, the people in charge. Be wary of anyone who claims to have all the answers.
And be mindful of who benefits from our attention, our clicks, our data.
Exactly. We need to be more intentional about where we spend our time online, which voices we amplify.
And maybe, just maybe, we need to start listening to those so-called paranoid technophobes a little more closely.
Right. Because what if they're not so paranoid after all?
Whoa. Okay, now that's something to think about. Yeah. If Rocco was right about all this, what other uncomfortable truths are we ignoring? What else is lurking around the corner in this brave new digital world of ours? Things to ponder, folks. Things to ponder.